So we said we want to be able to create this unit circle. And so now we're going to talk about the four quadrants. Quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4. And we want to notice the value of X and Y in each of these quadrants. Okay, so first we'll look at the X values. In quadrant 1, we see positive, 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 positive X values. That's a positive sign. In quadrant 2, now we're over here, we see negative 1/2, negative square root of 2/2. So over in quadrant 2, we see negative X values. In quadrant 3 down here, our X values are still negative. And then in quadrant 4, we've gone back over to the positive side of the X axis. So now we see our X values after the 0, 1/2 is positive, square root of 2/2 is positive, square root of 3/2 is positive. So in the fourth quadrant, the X values are positive. Now we'll look at the Y values. In the first quadrant, we see 1/2 is positive, square root of 2/2 is positive. So in the first quadrant, we have positive Y values. In the second quadrant, we are above the X-axis. So because we are above the X-axis, the Y values are square root of 3/2 is positive, square root of 2/2 is positive. The Y values are positive. Sorry, there's just a little line under there as like a blank for you to fill in. That's what these lines underneath are. Now in the third quadrant, now below the X-axis, so our Y values, negative 1/2, negative square root of 2/2 are now negative. So these are negative, negative in the third quadrant, X and Y. And in the fourth quadrant, now we are positive for the X, but now negative for the Y. Y values are negative down here below the X-axis. So that's a negative value there. So just to summarize this for you on a clean sheet, there's your positive X in the first quadrant and your negative X in the second quadrant, your negative X in the third quadrant, and in the fourth quadrant, X is again positive. And then for the Y values in the first quadrant, also positive. In the second quadrant, that's where Y is positive again because it's above the X-axis, but then down below the X-axis, now Y is negative. And then on the other side, in the fourth quadrant, same thing, Y is negative below the X-axis.